Welcome back, everyone. So today we're going to talk about new motorcycle sales, and as we're halfway through the year, we'll just do a quick rundown on what manufacturers are selling and how the different market segments are performing. So let's look at the split. Total sales for the first half of 2022. Broadly speaking, we've bounced back from the pandemic. Honda just dominate the segment, really, or the motorcycle or two-wheeled segment, with 12,000 new vehicle registrations. Now, after Honda, you have a sort of three-way competitive situation between Yamaha, Triumph and BMW, all with between say 12 and 16%. This year, Yamaha was a little bit higher performing than Triumph and BMW, but these three, say probably premium manufacturers, are then competing for a total of 40% of the remaining new registrations. Coming down a tier, you then have the likes of Kawasaki, Royal Enfield and Lexmoto, and these three brands actually operate in different niches really. Kawasaki obviously performance orientated with some retro designs. Lexmoto new-ish to the market compared to the other manufacturers. Chinese brand focuses on small capacity bikes, does have retro designs as well as modern sports bikes. And of course, Royal Enfield, a brand which has really segmented itself with its UK heritage and its focus on retro machines and cruisers. And then below this tier, we have the likes of KTM and Suzuki. I was a little bit surprised that Suzuki had such low sales at 4% of the overall market. It really is dwarfed by Honda. And of course, KTM is probably a little bit more specialized than some of the other brands. So that's the split in terms of individual sales. Let's have a look at the sales throughout the year next. So we can see here that we've got Jan, Feb, March, April, May, and June. See the highest colored bar is June, and the initial one at the bottom here in blue is Jan. What we're going to do is you can see, let's use Honda for an example. You can see that in January, motorcycle sales or new registrations were quite low. In March, with the 2022 plates becoming available, obviously sales bumped up as new owners wanted to have their bike on a 22 plate. So you see a peak in all manufacturers in March. And then throughout the summer months, sales are about 80% increased on the winter months. So this is really the making hay while the sun literally shines time for manufacturers. Honda dominates, and then Yamaha, Triumph, and BMW, as we talked about earlier, come in second, third, and fourth place. I was surprised to see Kawasaki really trading blows with Lexmoto and Royal Enfield, but I suppose in terms of numbers of registrations, Lexmoto and Royal Enfield are lower price points options, and so that might make sense how Kawasaki is shifting the same number, but the bikes are a higher price point, higher value. Okay, so let's have a quick breakdown then of the top selling models in each category as we go through the year. So we're looking at 1,200 sales of adventure motorcycles in 2022 so far. In January, this was the Honda CRF 300L, and that's a newer version of the 250L. And it's probably no coincidence that Itchy Boots has been riding it across the world, and this has really pumped up the popularity of the Honda CRF 300. Maybe it was popular beforehand, but that certainly didn't hinder it. So low capacity adventure bike doing really well here with 250 sales in Jan and Feb. And then you've got the rest of the year really being dominated by the mighty BMW 1250 GS. And some of the sales numbers here in March with new registrations of this bike is almost 500 sales shifted in the UK. So that's pretty punchy. It's good to see that Triumph being competitive here as well with the new middleweight adventure bike. So this also competes with BMW quite well in April. Perhaps they drained the pipeline here for March in BMW. So this allowed some people who'd been not wanting to buy their waiting to buy their GS. They'd already gone for it in March to make the most of the riding season here in the UK. And thus this lull in the BMW pipeline allowed the Triumph Tiger to take this category in April. By May and June, normal service was resumed, and the 1250 Adventure is just dominating here. So this just shows how much that BMW is really owning this segment. Good to see Honda being competitive. I think this is about £6,000, something like that. So it's about a third of the price with options of the Adventure. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the categories, but let's have a look at custom. Jump forward a couple to custom. So Royal Enfield Meteor 350. Now I've talked about this before. This bike is absolutely fantastic. I've owned the bike for £4,000. It's such a good value proposition. It's 20 brake horsepower, 350cc single. It just looks great, amazing feeling, full of character. And look at the sales for the Meteor 350. So Royal Enfield is still shipping this bike even in the winter months. So January almost 70, 65 in Feb. For the new registration in March, bang, straight up to 300. And then we've got 226 in April, 149 in May, and 143 in June. But what's important to note is the custom category. So that's sort of a pegs forward retro style category. This is dominated by the Royal Enfield Meteor. And if you compare Royal Enfield's total sales, which is about 2,962, so that's just under 3,000 sales for the first half of the year. 955 of them were the Royal Enfield Meteor, so 1/3 of the company's entire sales come from this bike. What an amazing success! Let's switch now onto the modern classic. So modern classic, by definition, is kind of built to a specification to be of an earlier era, or at least styled to look that way. And in the modern classic category, in January, Yamaha's XSR-700 was competitive here with 50 or just under 50 bike registrations. Obviously, the Interceptor is quite strong in this segment. And then we did see in March, though, with new registrations, 174 people registered a Kawasaki Z900 RS. This is really interesting because what you see, and you'll see this pattern down here, is that people who are investing more in their motorcycles, a higher price point, they typically wait until the new year. Whereas people who are buying a 125, for example, they're happy just to purchase whenever because there's less of a sort of price differential when you compare a 21 plate to a 22 plate. Back into April, the Interceptor 650 still punching in contention. Just shows how good this bike is for Royal Enfield. I think it was released in 2017 was the first time they dropped the twin, and since then it's just gone from strength to strength. New colors have been released, but essentially it's the same 649cc parallel twin, 47 brake horsepower, twin exhausts. It basically not changed it. It looks absolutely fantastic. And then we see something interesting in May and June in the modern classic category, the Royal Enfield Classic 350, which uses the same motor as the Meteor 350, 349cc single. That now is really doing well in the sales. It's actually almost meeting, or in some cases about to exceed, the Meteor 350 sales. So the Classic 350 looks like the Classic 500 from the sort of mid 2010s, but it's obviously been redone with this small engine. It's much more retro looking than the Meteor. So real clever thing there by Royal Enfield to sort of use the strength for the Meteor 350. The Classic's been released a few months now, and it's kind of started to find its own strength, hasn't it? You've had good reviews, good user reviews. Everybody's raving about it, and now it's come into its own. So let's have a look at the naked category. So in the first few months, again, dominated by Honda's 125s. So this obviously Honda is the main market leader in two-wheeled vehicles in the UK. So they're dominating here in the 125 category. One little upset here in the Is it modern classic? Yeah, no, we're down to naked. Yeah, one little difference in upset here is the Triumph Trident just had a very good sales record in June with 225. Road Sport. So Road Sport for a long time has been dominated by Lexmoto and the LXR 125. Gone are the days of 600cc and 1 litre sports bikes selling. Everybody looks up to those bikes, and they're kind of the bike that you put on your wall, but no one actually puts their hand in their pocket and buys them. 600s have all but left the UK because of Euro 5. Maybe in Asia and North America, you can still buy a CBR 600R, for example. But let's have a look. In March, people were registering new on a 22 plate the Ninja 1000 SX. So this used to be called the Z1000 SX. I think they just shortened it to 1000 SX, but it's basically Kawasaki's premium sport tourer, and it's led the way for about a decade really as the bike to go for if you want to do sports touring. So it's a litre bike, about 140 horsepower, I think. Powerful bike, big, heavy, can cover distances. So they sold a lot of those in March, but then look what happened. The Suzuki, the new sports tourer from Suzuki, the GSXS-1000, is now coming into competition with the Ninja. So for the last 3 months, the Suzuki has been the top selling bike in this category. And by that definition, it means it's outselling the Ninja. So that's really interesting. Good for Suzuki because they've obviously got a small market share. And I had a feeling that Suzuki would do well with that. And we've actually reviewed it on this channel. So Suzuki have done really well. Again, I'm going to skip over scooter, but scooters are actually the highest selling bike, even besting adventure, but I'm not going to mention that on this channel. And finally, we're going to talk about touring. So touring's been dominated by the BMW R1250 RT. So basically a boxer engine, but bigger fairing, road wheels, etc., etc. I'll just quickly define touring for you. Basically, it's a machine designed for long distance riding. You have a lot of luggage options available with it, and a comfortable seating position for the rider, possibly for a pillion passenger as well. But look what's happened this year. So BMW have been trading blows with Honda, and they've got a brand new platform, which is the NT1100. And that was quite competitively priced as well. A little bit boring, some reviewers said, but obviously people have been making the decision to purchase the Honda NT1100. So yeah, look here in February and April and May and June, the best-selling bike was the Honda. So we've got 75, 38, 90. So about 300 bikes shifted in the first half of the year for Honda. So brand new bike in that segment, and they've done really well. So it just shows the sort of market's evolving as time goes on. As new bikes get released, the sort of brand loyalty really isn't there, and people will buy the best bike for them, which is great to see. All right, well, I'm going to wrap up the video there. I hope you found that interesting, and yeah, let me know what you think about the top selling bikes of the first half of 2022.